Welcome to the Interstate Mets Report with your hosts, Nelson and Chris.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Interstate Mets Report. It's your boy CP here with my co-host Nelson from Amish Country Mets Fan on this lovely Friday afternoon. It is 3:30 p.m., January 5th, and this is the first time that we're doing a stream since the new year. So Nelson, Happy New Year's and Happy New Year's to everybody in the chat. Before we get into anything, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribing to both channels down in the description below and hit that like button for us. Likewise, make sure you all are following us on Interstate Mets on X. Nelson, how are you doing today?
Not too bad. Happy New Year to you as well and everybody watching. Good to be back on doing the show, and we finally got a little bit to talk about, so that's nice. And another deal just went through. Looks like the Rockies have agreed to 1-year deals with Dakota Hudson and Jacob Stallings. I know that's not Met news, but that just happened. So more news going. Things are starting to get moving a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's called the Mets semi-warm stove, because we do have a signing to talk about, and we'll be talking about a whole host of other topics. Like you see here on your screen, Mr. David Stearns leading the charge here, and we're going to be talking all things Mets. As always, make sure you're subscribing to Nelson's YouTube at Amish Country Mets Fan. You know what to do. And if you're not subscribed to mine as well, at CPNY Sports on YouTube, we are both streaming this to our respective platforms. And make sure you guys are hitting the comments section. Hit the live chat. Let us know what you think. I know we got a couple comments in here already. We got Carlos checking in on the stream. What up, Carlos? We got Tom, NYMUK. What's up? What is up, Tom? Appreciate your support. We got Uncle Ted in here as well. Brandon Wu and Bryce Miller all day. And we got our main man, Yuki, in the house. Yuki Matsui. What up, Yuki? Appreciate this continuous support. Let's get into some Mets talk, because we do have a lot to talk about today. And we're going to start by the headliner that we saw yesterday in Harrison Bader signing a 1-year, $10.5 million deal with the New York Mets. You see the 2023 numbers for Harrison Bader on the left, and then you also see how the 2024 New York Mets outfield as of today shakes out 1 through 5. Nelson, I know this is a little bit of I'm not going to say it's a peculiar signing, because we went on the Mets Hot Stove Live a couple days ago with Talking Mets with Rob. We were both sort of at a loss for left field. I know you had mentioned Bader based off of what Keith said on Shane Sun's podcast and their Twitter accounts. And we were just sort of kind of in limbo in terms of, well, we know Bader is out there, but we don't know if he moves that threshold for the New York Mets as a starting left fielder for this team. So what were your initial reactions when this deal went down, when Andy Martino, I think he had it first that he was signing with the Mets? What were your initial reactions, and how do you analyze this move in terms of helping the Mets in 2024?
I'm fine with it. I never, just given the parameters of where we're at and the fact that we seem to be hesitant on giving long-term contracts, a guy like this makes sense. A guy that doesn't block your younger guys down the line. Listen, his problem is he can't stay on the field, right? So that's an issue. But when he is on the field, the dude is an elite fielder, and he's an elite center fielder for that matter. So this allows you, I know Martino said that they will probably still play Nimmo in center some, but this allows you to move Nimmo over to left when you want. If Nimmo's not playing or you're platooning, whatever you're doing, you can put Bader in center field. As long as he's healthy, he's gonna snag the ball. The guy from 2018 to 2023, he had a 66 OAA, which is most in Major League Baseball, or highest, however you want to say it. The guy had 4 DRS last year, which also Tyrone Taylor had as well. So listen, like you can see Stearns' plan now. Like you're starting to see it take shape. Like, no, it's not the flashy names. No, it's not anybody fancy. but he's trying to improve the defense. He's trying to improve the speed. Both Taylor, Bader, Wendell, even that Zach Short, these are all very fast guys. They all have pretty slick fielders, so you can see kind of where things are headed in that regard. Obviously, we still need a bat somewhere, in my opinion. You would think that's the DH role. Hopefully, we get some sort of signing there. But yeah, I don't have a problem with this. We're relying on a lot of question marks. Can he stay healthy? It's an issue. But that's one of the reasons you have Taylor now. He's kind of in play there if you need him. Later in the year, maybe if Gilbert's doing his thing down in the minors, you can give him a look. If something happens to Bader or Marte or any of these guys, Nimmo, knock on wood, obviously you don't want any of them getting hurt. But if it happens, then you kind of have somebody waiting in the wings there that can kind of step in. But I think this is the outfield now. I don't think we're signing anybody else for the outfield. I really don't think we're trading anybody or trading for any outfielders. So I think you're looking at our outfield. It isn't the prettiest outfield in the world, but listen, these guys, if you put, Marte's probably the outlier, but Nimmo in left, Bader in center. If it's a day where Taylor's playing as well, like that is a very elite defense for the outfield. So at the very least, if guys are putting the ball in play and hitting it to the outfield, we got guys that can catch it. So that's a little bit of a step up from last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. The defense is something that David Stearns showed that he loved in Milwaukee, and he's directly transferring that over here to the New York Mets in 2024. Before we talk a little bit more about Harrison Bader, I want to shout out the chat. Make sure you all are hitting that thumbs up on both streams. I definitely appreciate it. We got Mets Talk with Hayden in the chat. Make sure you go checking out his videos and his live streams as well. We got Steven in the house saying hello to everyone. Appreciate you. Got M Easy in the house saying is he wrong for not wanting to give Soler a 3-year deal? And we got Patty in the chat as well. Always appreciate the support here. So, yeah, like I said, and just to mimic everything that you said, the health is a concern. Now, like I said, you have a platoon of outfielders. You see on the right-hand side of your screen, Marte, Bader, Nimmo, Taylor, and Stewart. The first three guys have their injury concerns. Marte with the groin. Nimmo has an extensive injury history. Bader, the same thing. Harrison Bader hasn't played over 100 games since 2021, and he's only done it in 3 of his first 7 seasons of his career. That is something where it screams platoon to me. It just screams platoon to me. And I think that the Mets, honestly, I'm not sure how feasible it is, but they honestly might keep 2 outfielders on that bench because of these injury concerns and these guys' platoon ability. And I just pulled that random word, from under, but I think that really is the case. And all these guys can swing the bat. Like Bader probably is the worst hitter of all these guys, but even then, he has a clutch gene to him. And Talking Mets with Rob was saying down the stream the other day, he showed up pretty big in the playoffs for the Yankees. And I'm not saying we're going to get that over the course of 162. Not at all. You go look at his Baseball Savant page, all of his offensive metrics. He doesn't walk a ton. He doesn't strike out a ton, but he's one of the guys that he's in the lower hard hit rate category. And the Baseball Savant offensive metrics scream that to us. So are we going to expect anything north of 240, 245 from the batting average standpoint? No. Does he have the capability of hitting 12 to 15 home runs? Yes. But am I going to expect that out of him? No, because I don't think he's going to be playing every single day. Exactly what Mr. Martino said. So like I said, keep these guys' legs fresh. What was that?
What he does do is hit lefties well. And we had an issue, a huge issue last year hitting lefties. We were horrible against them. So if he can, at the very least, stay healthy and play against lefties, that's an upgrade. Like, we need that. So I'll take that. Like you said, he has a little bit of pop. He's not here for his offense. Let's face it. He's here because the dude has amazing speed and an amazing glove. And we needed that. We need better defense. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the outfield performance this year, obviously Bader, we have low expectations, right? I think that we all, view this Harrison Bader signing as a bridge type signing, right? Whether it's an outfield in the free agent class in 2025 or my favorite prospect in the system, Drew Gilbert. I think that it screams more Drew Gilbert than anything, but I'll rest my case on that until we see that happen and it coming to fruition in 2025. Like I said, this is something where we don't expect Bader to come in here and provide us big offensive metrics. But the outlier here in terms of how we truly grade the Mets outfield in 2024 is going to be up to Starling Marte. I think we all know that. How does he come back from the groin injury? How does he come back from a very, very lackadaisical and inconsistent 2023? We want to see that 2022 Marte. And I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see anything happen in the outfield from now until the beginning of the season. This is our outfield, and we're set. This is what we're rolling with. So hopefully Bader can be a little bit better than what he proved in 2023. This is something where he's not going to play every day. I think Emmy's saying that already in the chat over here. Like, we know he's not going to play every day. Tyrone Taylor better be ready on any given day. And so, and DJ Stewart, the same thing, because we're going to be seeing a whole platoon, a whole variety of outfield combinations. So, and my thing is like, honestly, as good as Bader is in the defensive category, I know he has a lot of range of motion in the outfield with his speed. I know he has a plus arm. But to me, and I don't know how you feel about this yet, Nelson, I don't really care who plays center field when both of those guys are on the field. I think you can draw it up both ways. You have the better defender in center field of Bader, but if Nimmo plays center field with Bader in left field, you can surround Nimmo's weak arm with two guys in the corners that have above average arms in Marte and Harrison Bader. So would you rather see Bader in center field than both those guys on the field, or do you not really care who's in center field at that rate?
I mean, to me, it makes more sense to put your better defender in center field. He's the better defender. So I would rather see Bader in center field. I'm not going to cry about it if he's not, but it makes the most sense. Like, Nimmo's a serviceable center fielder, but he's not great. Bader is an elite center fielder. Like, he really is. When he's on the field, the dude is elite. And to me, like, it makes more sense to put the best guy in that spot. But again, I'm not gonna cry about it if it's the other way around. I'm sure though. I feel like the majority of the time when Bader's in there, regardless, he's going to be in center. I just feel like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, but if it's the other way around, I truly wouldn't be mad. I think Nimmo's shown that he's a capable defender. I know it's kind of hard to argue against Bader in center field, but my whole point is like, whatever decision is made, there's the decision, and that's how we move. This is an interesting quote or interesting comment here, because I definitely agree with it. And this is something that we talked about Nimmo, maybe providing a little bit more power in 2023, his average dipping a little bit, the OBP not really dipping, but definitely wasn't what it was in 2022 from what it seemed like qualitatively. And I know this is something that you definitely took issue with in our previous Interstate Mets streams, the whole approach from Brandon Nimmo in 2022 versus 2023. Now, when you have guys like Marte, Bader, Taylor that are not going to get you those 20 plus home runs, presumably, like Taylor over a course of 162 might, but we're not really banking on that. Would you like to see Nimmo keep with that 2023 approach, or would you still like to see him keep that 2022 approach where he was, line drive type hitter, gap to gap, and occasional home run would come for Brandon Nimmo? What do you think?
Yeah, listen, Nimmo, his numbers were fine last year. It was at times, like, there were times in the season where it looked like he was selling out for power more than he was for the typical leadoff guy approach. I prefer, regardless of the lack of power in the outfield, I prefer that set up the lineup type of guy that's going to work the count and get on base. I'm not going to cry. If he's hitting home runs, he's hitting home runs. It is what it is. I prefer that. Just make a pitcher throw 20 pitches, work a walk, get on base. I like that. And I like that out of Nimmo's game. more than I like the homers. If he's hitting homers, I kind of would prefer someone else to lead off, but we don't really have another leadoff hitter really that makes sense for this team. So that's fine. I'm good with Nimmo. Nimmo's fine. Nimmo just needs to stay healthy, continue to stay healthy, do his thing. I'm good with whatever Nimmo does. I think if we're looking for power, it's got to be from the DH spot. And that's why I keep clamoring we need to sign a DH because, listen, I get people like Vientos. I just don't see it out of them. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be. If they go with him, I'm not going to go crazy about it. I just feel like if you can get a Turner, a Martinez, a Soler, even though I do agree with Easy, I wouldn't go for 3 years. He probably isn't going to take a 2-year deal, so that would take us out on him anyway. But I do agree with Easy on that point. Like I would hesitate to give him 3. So yeah, that's where I feel like we need to get our power from DH, from Pete, from Alvarez. He's going to be playing our catcher hopefully all year. There's no reason this guy can't hit 30 homers. He has that kind of power. And Lindor's going to get you close to 30 homers, maybe hit 30 homers again. So there is power in this lineup. It's just, it's not, like you said, it's just relying on a lot of question marks. If Marte somehow becomes 2022 Marte again, then this is a much better team than we think. So I'm that's a hope and a prayer. Like we won't know until he's out on the field playing games. Hopefully it's the case. I'm not counting on it, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, the Mets lineup is shaking out to be, obviously we're DH away, but if we get that resurgence from Starling Marte, it's definitely a lot better of a lineup than we're kind of talking about here. The DH is an obvious need, and if Harrison Bader can provide anything better than what we see on the screen here, that would be a plus for us. And like I said, 274 on base percentage here. Combined with the low walks and low strikeouts, it tells you that he puts the ball in play often, but doesn't really necessarily hit it hard, or doesn't find those right spots. So we'll see if he can put it together a complete year offensively. And this is a prove-it-year deal within itself, too, with the 1 year. Like, he has everything to prove in the world for his next contract, as does, on the other side of the ball, Luis Severino. So that's also an underrated kind of aspect to this offseason. I know a lot of people don't like the 1 year deals. They're cheap. They're short term. I understand it's not the sexiest thing, but these guys are playing for their next contract. We saw it with Tommy Pham this past season in 2023 when he lit it up after the first couple months of the season playing on a 1 year deal. So these things can happen, and we can get above expected results from these guys on 1 year deals. And I think that's what a lot of people don't take into consideration as well.
Listen, Bader, let me say something real quick. Bader's best year is not all that far from, it was 2021. He hit 16 homers, had 50 RBIs, hit 267, had a 785 OPS. If he can produce that, that's pretty solid. Granted, that was only in 103 games. Again, that's the problem. He doesn't play a lot. But if he can produce similar to those numbers, that's a pretty good year, and he's only 2 years away from it. So it's not like he's a totally awful hitter. Like there is something there. We just got to use him right. We got to keep him healthy. Again, not play him every day, obviously. And we'll see where the chips fall.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. 100% there. We'll see what we get out of Harrison Bader. We're going to get to a couple of the comments here. Talking about Daniel's talking about Bader cutting his hair. Also, Harrison Bader reunites with his former college buddy and Pete Alonso. I know Pete Alonso took to Instagram right after that. So maybe that can have a positive effect on Pete too. Not that he needs it, but I mean, we saw the average was what it was, but home runs are never going to be scarce for Pete Alonso here. We have Easy saying that Nimmo took a step back defensively in center field. Left field fits perfectly for him. I agree with you. We paid him like a center fielder last offseason because the market was what it was. But this really is that transition year. I think that we start to see Nimmo start to play a little bit more left field and sort of really transition and get him comfortable in the corner rather than up the middle. So I definitely agree with you. Let's see here. We got Ian in the house here. How many games do we think the Mets will win in 2024? And if you could bring back one player from history to play now, who would it be? That's a great question. Nelson, you take that first.
Ooh, listen, I hate to put on a number yet because the team's not fully built yet, right? So I think if we add a DH, one of those guys, whoever it is, and we add another starter that can be slotted into the top of the rotation, one or two, or what have you, then this team can win mid 80s games if things break right. A trade or two in the season, you can maybe get to 90 wins. I think that's a very real possibility. It's also a very real possibility that things go horribly and the injury bug hits us and none of these guys pan out and we end up winning like 70 games again. It really is. This team, it can go either way. Like I understand why fans are hesitant and why fans are kind of like, I don't understand the fans that are ready to just give up on the season, but I understand looking at this roster and going, I don't see it. But I also I truly believe like if things break right, we could get in the playoffs. Like that's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't think that's why when people say we're punting 2024, I just truly don't believe that. Like it's not a punt. We're trying to win. It's just not necessarily how you may have wanted to see it. As far as one player back from history, now this is tough because my favorite Met of all time is Mike Piazza. But if you're putting him on this roster, Francisco Alvarez is the catcher, right? Well, I guess you can make Mikey P the DH. Yeah, let's do it. Let's roll with that. Bring back Mike Piazza, let him DH. Alvarez can catch, and let's go. You put that kind of production in this lineup, in this fantasy land that we're in, this team would be in solid shape.
That's interesting. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Aaron's on the same page with you. He said if it's not hitting, then he'd bring back Nolan Ryan for the pitching. We'd see Emizy would bring back Edgardo Alfonso. For me, if I had to, Carlos is saying Piazza for the DH as well.
I agree with Carlos.
I was going to take a different route. I was going to go this route and say I would bring back left-handed power hitting Carlos Delgado to be our DH. That's who I would choose. That's the route that I would take.
Yeah. You could bring back Carlos Beltran and he could be your center fielder. You can't go wrong with a lot of these guys. The Mets have had some really good players in their history. Obviously, we have all the pitchers, the Seavers.
Gooden. Yeah,
Gooden.
Absolutely.
The Mets have had some really good players in their history. So I don't think there's a wrong answer to this question unless you pick some bozo Jason Bay or something.
Josh Tolley.
Josh Tolley, there you go.
But I completely agree with you. I think we all know what to expect with Harrison Bader. We know what he's here for. It's a stopgap sort of outfielder until 2025 that can maybe win us a couple ball games and sneak into contention. And I think my answer right now, with the current roster, I'd say this team would go perfect 500, 81-81, and see if that shakes out for a wild card spot. But, like you said, there's plenty of offseason left via trades. We've been hearing the Mets active in the trade market here. Today, as of recent, Stearns is working the phone, hopefully for some pitching, etc., and we'll see what happens there. But like I said, we got a couple people in the chat here. Appreciate you dropping those comments. Make sure we move on. Before we move on to the next topic, hit that subscribe button on both of our channels. Hit that thumbs up. We thoroughly appreciate it. And make sure you keep commenting your thoughts and opinions. Okay. Enough of Harrison Bader. Enough of the outfield. I think it's set. I think we know what we're getting with Bader. Let's talk about something different here. This is a little bit more of a unique topic. And this is a topic that I wanted to bring in, especially with your expertise and the tweet that you dropped via Spotrac yesterday. And if you haven't checked it out, make sure you go to Amish Country Met on X and go check out the tweet. It's a beautiful breakdown here of the Mets' expected payrolls over the next 4 years. You see the CBT expected thresholds for the MLB $237 million for this year in 2024, $241 million expected in 2025. We see where the Mets are operating here in 2024, and we see money coming off the books by default here at 146, 109, 87. There's a trend, and it's trending downward. And I think that this, honestly, is something that a lot of Mets fans have lost sight of this offseason in terms of why the Mets are reluctant to get tied into long-term deals this offseason. Nelson, I'm going to let you explain it a little bit better in a way that maybe more people could understand. Maybe they're not picking up the drift of where I'm going. So take it away. I think this is a very important topic when we analyze what has happened from the start of the offseason to now on January 5th.
Yeah, no, you explained it pretty well. I mean, this number here is before the Gator contract. So it's still an estimation, but we're sitting right around 300 million already. And we still have to add a few guys. So we're going to go over that there's the 3 tax brackets or whatever. We're going to go over that again, barring something crazy. So we're not in a spot to just throw money away. Yes, next year, obviously, you see more than $100 million comes off the books. That's huge. But you still don't want to lock yourself into guys that are not really, there's not a ton of people or players out there that are worth the kind of money that they're asking for. And you don't want to lock yourself into that and then take away from that 2025 ability to spend. Yes, the free agent market next year isn't totally great either, but Juan Soto is out there. I don't think he's going to sign an extension. There are some pitchers out there. There are guys. The 2025 market isn't bad. So the Mets had a plan. It was Yamamoto they were going to throw a bag at if they could, because he's a young guy that they could have had for years, or they were going to pivot and do what they're doing. And I don't have a problem with it. They need to, I mean, this isn't, and remember, the number, whatever we're paying, the tax number on this is insane. Like, we're adding another, so 300 million becomes like 400 million. So even though it's officially 300, Steve is paying another $100 million just in taxes. So it just doesn't, it's not realistic to think that you're just going to take the Yamamoto money and just burn it because we can. Next year now, we do have some more flexibility, and it would be interesting to see with that what Stearns can do. Because if the tax threshold is 237, we're going to have around $100 million we can spend and still be able to stay under that tax threshold. So actually it's 241 in 2025. So yeah, we're going to have like right around $100 million, barring any other moves that we do. So, I mean, it just makes sense to be smart about how you spend your money. You're not winning the offseason with flashy names doesn't win you games. It doesn't. We've done it before, and we've seen how it blows up in our face. So you just have to be smart. He brought in Stearns because Stearns is a smart baseball guy. He knows how to spend money. He knows how to evaluate talent. And next year, you might see a little bit more spending, and the fans that want to see the big ticket names might be a little happier. But it's just, the situation is what it is. We ended up, if you look back, hindsight's 2020, right? We probably shouldn't have thrown huge bags at Scherzer and Verlander, because if we don't, we're sitting in a much better spot. But we did. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it now. We had to pivot. Part of that pivot was what we did at the trade deadline last year. Part of that pivot is doing what we're doing now in free agency, and we'll see what happens and where we go from there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, for those of y'all that don't know, we're paying $50 million combined between Scherzer, Verlander, and McCann this year alone. In that $283 million mark that you all see there, 50 million of that is from those three players that are not even on the New York Mets in 2024. And like I said, I don't blame the Mets for doing what they did at the deadline. They obviously needed to do that, but it's important to realize when you go into an offseason, paying $50 million collectively to players that are not even on the team is something that you just don't see every day in the major leagues. Like no type of ownership or front office is going to be willing to take that hit to make your organization better for the future. And that's exactly what the Mets did. And like you said, read these numbers and read them clear. If you're watching the stream right now, 140, you said 146 or 141, whatever it is, give or take 5 million, gives you $100 million of working room for the next season. And that perfectly flows in to the next topic because we have a player who we need to extend and is going to be looking for a big bag. And that is Mr. Pete Alonso. And there's a whole plethora of free agents in that 2025 market. If Juan Soto hits, you'll have a couple pitchers out there in Corbin Burns that you can go ahead and have a lot of flexibility towards, in terms of signing. So let's talk about Pete Alonso. And let's talk about this projection that Spotrac has. You see 9 years for $296 million. This has to be said. We haven't talked about Pete Alonso probably for quite some time. And it's a refreshing topic. It's a refreshing topic. Here's Spotrac's projection for Mr. Pete Alonso and the breakdown from how they got there. You see, they took the contracts of Lindor, Correa, Machado, and Devers and came to a figure of 9 years for 32.9 approximately AAV. So I'm going to leave that up on the screen here. Nelson, they can still hear you. What does your mind sort of think when you see this graphic and when you see 9 years for $32.9 million for Mr. Pete Alonso?
I've said countless times I didn't really want to give Pete 9 or 10 years. I felt like there had to be a limit to where the contract you gave him. But at this point, with the way of things have shaken out, I mean, if it takes 9 years, so be it. Almost 33 million a year to me seems a little steep. I would prefer to get that down a little bit if possible, but at the end of the day, he's your homegrown guy. He's your big power hitter. You want to keep him. I don't know, man. I still don't want to just give him whatever he wants. Obviously, there needs to be some negotiation here. I prefer your number much to the Spotrac number. If I can get him at 8 years, 240, I'm happy. Even 8 years, 250, I'll live with that. 300 million, I don't really want to go there. More than 8 years, I prefer to stay away from it. But the thing with Pete is, I truly believe he's not going to be at first base for that long. At some point, he's going to transition to a DH. And Easy just said it. The history of long-term first baseman contracts isn't great. And it's something to keep in mind. Like, you have to really think about that. And that's why I'm hesitant. But at the same time, there's that bug in my ear. Like, this is your guy. This is a homegrown guy. We don't often keep our homegrown guys. It would be nice to lock him up and hopefully have a potential future Hall of Famer on the team. And it'd be nice. It'd be nice for the fans. It would be nice for the team's history and what have you. So we'll see how it shakes out. I honestly don't know. I imagine that they, at the very least, exchange some numbers at some point throughout the offseason. I'm thinking if we see more movement on this, it'll probably be closer to spring training or even during spring training. It does seem like they're more than happy to let it ride and let him go to free agency, which it's a bold strategy. it's a cat and mouse game. Like, what's his market going to be? How many teams are really going to be willing to give him that much money? I don't think he has a huge market, but you never know. There's teams that get desperate that just have money to blow. The San Francisco Giants are a team that comes to mind. They've been dying to sign a star, and they're willing to throw a bag. Nobody's been willing to take it. I don't know that Pete would be willing to take it, but they're one of those teams that look in the Cubs. You imagine they've been linked to Pete a lot. They could say, you know what, screw it, we want this guy. So you are playing with fire if you let him go to the free agency. So we'll see what happens. I mean, if you can't sign him, is there a world where come the trade deadline, the Mets aren't doing great and you decide, remember what the Yankees did with Chapman? They traded him, got prospects, turned around and signed them in the offseason. Could we see something like that happen? Maybe talk to Pete and be like, hey, we're going to trade you because things aren't working out, but we still want you here. So let's talk after the season. It's possible. I don't know. I'd rather not play with that fire. I'd rather just sign the dude if we can, but I'm also not in the business of just giving guys whatever they want. So I'm torn, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And honestly, I want to be confident that a resolution is going to happen this offseason, but we all know that he's hired Scott Boras for a reason. We all know that asking price is going to be ridiculously high from the start. And the last time that we heard anything, honestly, that I heard anything at least in terms of negotiation talks with Pete Alonso was back near early September, maybe midway through September. Mark Feinsand put something out there that the Mets did make Pete Alonso an offer, and although it wasn't disrespectful to him of an offer, it wasn't something that moved him in terms of not foregoing free agency. So there's still a little bit a ways away in terms of this gap, in terms of the contract negotiation. So I agree with you. If we step back and take a look at it, there's 2 points here. In 2024, if the New York Mets are not competitive, they're not competing for a wild card spot, they're not even close. They fielded offers for him. We know that's a fact that they fielded offers for him in 2023. I would be hard pressed to think that they wouldn't do so in 2024 if the situation is the same. So for everyone that wants Pete Alonso, that's not to scare you. That's not to make me think that they're going to trade Pete Alonso. But just to gauge how desperate teams are and what a return package could be like, they're definitely going to field those calls if the Mets are not competitive. If they are competitive, there's no way they're trading Pete Alonso. And we know we're going to see him in opening day unless David Stearns is a liar because he doubled down on the fact that he's going to be a Met by opening day. So let's forget about a trade.
He's not going anywhere before opening day. I don't.
No, not at all. So the other side of it is the New York Mets obviously have what it takes to compete in future years. But with this organization set up the way it is, and we talked about this on the Hot Stove Live the other day, the Mets have a core that they're long-term financially invested in already. Francisco Lindor, 8 years left of. Brandon Nimmo, 7 years left of. Edwin Diaz, 5 more years of. Jeff McNeil, if you consider him part of the core, you got 3 more years of. Not really, right? But just say for all intents and purposes. Francisco Alvarez, you're going to have for the long term. They're even talking about maybe a potential contract extension after he hit, mid-20s in the home run category this past season. So you have a core established, and that's excluding Pete Alonso. Do you think that they can win a championship within the next 3 to 4 years, which is when Pete Alonso's presumed prime is going to be? Do we believe that if Pete Alonso sticks around with his core, that this team can win a championship with any sort of trade acquisitions this offseason or next season or next offseason, and also the free agent sort of market coming in next offseason with the amount of cap flexibility? I think it's no question that they think they can. I don't think that's a question at all. But that has to be a conversation in terms of believing in these guys that you have already invested in financially for the long term. That at least has to be an idea and a thought process within these Pete Alonso contract negotiations.
It's not just
So
believing
that's
in
where
these,
I'm at with it.
it's not just believing in those guys either, though. It's believing you can't win a championship without some of these prospects panning out. I truly believe that. You have to have some of these guys pan out. And it's whether or not you believe in those guys. And Stearns, that's why Stearns needs to evaluate these kids this year, because he needs to see who he can trust, who he can move on from, and who puts us in a better position to get to that ultimate goal. We have a lot of guys in the system. There's guys that we don't even talk about. There's names I can give you that we haven't even thought of. And there's more guys coming in the international free agent market that we're signing here soon. It's good. The deadline, the date for that, I think, is sometime in February. So we're gonna continue to add talent. Some of that talent looks very promising, but we have to hit on it. We haven't had that luck lately. The last guy to really, I mean, Pete, yeah, he's probably the last prospect we had come up that's really taken off and gone next level. Before that, it was Jake. We need that. We need an ace. Hopefully, Christian Scott can be. I'm not saying he's going to be Jacob deGrom per se, but hopefully he can be one of those top of the rotation arms, because you need cost controlled players to go with your guys that are making a ton of money. So that's why the Braves are so successful. They had all these young guys come up, and then they all took cheap ass extensions because they blackmailed all of them. I guess I don't know, but we need some of that luck, right? So who knows what's gonna happen? But yeah, they have to. That's all things they have to think about with this extension and everything else. So we'll see where it all plays out this year. This year's going to be interesting. It really is. It's going to be interesting to see what this team shapes out to be, how we handle the trade deadline when it comes to it, where we're at, whether we're ready to crank it into like a playoff run, or we suck again and we're discussing whether or not to trade some of our other guys. So we'll see.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, all great points too, and that's the whole point about what you said, with the Matt Olson situation. I've always said, I project, Pete Alonso at $30 million a year, right? I'm not going to go quite as high as $32.5 million like Spotrac is, but I think at the end of the day, with who's representing Pete Alonso, with him going to get that money regardless of a team that's desperate, maybe the Cubs or Giants. I know Carlos is watching this and he doesn't believe that anybody else is going to go 30 million for Pete Alonso, which could be a fair point also as a counterpoint, because you have Christian Walker hitting the open market. You have Anthony Rizzo hitting the open market. You have Paul Goldschmidt hitting the open market. There's other first basemen that if you don't want to pay Pete Alonso that kind of money, and if the teams don't value him for that much, there's other options to, I guess, short-term options with Paul Goldschmidt's and Anthony Rizzo's age, but there's other options, albeit hitting the market. But, I'm still in the business of, listen, it's not feasible to compare him to a Freddie Freeman contract. It's not feasible to compare him to a Matt Olson contract. Matt Olson left millions of dollars on the table when he signed that extension, like most Braves do when they sign an extension with them, for one reason or another. Hometown discount. That is an exact hometown discount that we're talking about that Pete Alonso is not going to even entertain at all. Freddie Freeman was 32 years old compared to 29-year-old Pete Alonso right now. Albeit, I know Freddie Freeman's light years better than Pete Alonso. Let's just call a spade, be objective. Freddie Freeman is light years above Pete Alonso. Absolutely. But the age gap in terms of where they're at in the primes of their careers certainly probably has to play a factor there. That's all things that you have to take into consideration. And that's why I truly do think, even with this 8 years, $240 million that I'm putting up on the screen here, he becomes the highest paid first baseman in the league by a couple $1 million. And it's not really necessary to go up to that 32.5 just to pony it up because Scott Boras and company are asking for it. There's two sides to every story. And I know Vladimir Guerrero is coming up on his possible extension, and whatever Pete Alonso signs, Vladimir Guerrero is probably going to want to top that. I understand it's just going to keep going on and on and on and on. But it does become a point where it's like, when are you going to put your foot down if you're Steve Cohen and David Stearns and not pony up to these ridiculous demands? Because listen, based off of Pete Alonso's production, like, yeah, he's a great power hitter, probably top 2 in the game, if not the best power hitter in the league, pure power standpoint. But does he actually warrant that $30 million a year? Does he actually tell you statistics wise when you compare him to Matt Olson and Freddie Freeman? That's not to diss our guy, right? He's been a Met for life. But like when you stack him up statistically to those guys, does he truly objectively deserve to be the highest paid at the end of the day in that category? My answer is no. But at the end of the day, I would give it to him. But there are limitations to it. That's how I've been singing this whole Pete Alonso tune for months now, and I still feel that way. I think $30 million by itself is already generous enough, let alone 32.5. That blows Miguel Cabrera's $32 million a year away. And I get it, times change. Cabrera signed his deal in 2014, which is basically unheard of at that point. Inflation's a thing, I understand, but it just becomes a little ridiculous at the end of the day. So Daniel's saying, let's hit the comment section before we get into our last topic of the day. Did you want to say something real quick? I think I cut you off.
No, you definitely, I agree with you. I was saying it back before the season ended. Like, I have a limit to where I'm willing to go on Alonso. I'm budging on it a little bit because, like I said, the whole homegrown aspect and this and that. But he really isn't. He's very good. I'm not knocking the guy, like you said. But if you look at his 2023 numbers objectively, granted that could be an outlier, but if he's hitting lower 220s, 230s, that's not worth $30 million to me. Like, it's just not. If he's hitting more 260, 270, 280, he's hitting the ball the other way. If his defense is improving a little bit, then yeah, maybe you can see that. So we'll see what he does this year. It's his contract year. I expect him to ball out. And let's face it, if he does have a monster year, then he is probably going to ask for more money. So that's another reason you kind of are playing with fire with. But also, like Carlos and some others have said, who's going to give him that money? Like, I don't know. Like, the problem is teams get desperate. Sometimes they just are willing to do things that aren't feasible. And if you let them hit free agency, that's what you run into. You never know what crazy team is going to do. And now that the Dodgers have opened up this whole sign a guy and IOU and pay him later thing, who knows what can happen. So it's just, I don't know. But I just hope he stays. That's where I'll end that.
Yeah, and not only for his talents too, but we all know Mets Twitter is going to throw a fit, and whether it's warranted or not, like, we know it's going to happen. So Daniel's saying that it would suck if Pete pulls a DeGrom on us. Carlos is saying he might have other suitors, but none will offer that amount. His market with us, if it's about the money. Oh, okay, I see. If he wants the money, it's going to be with the Mets, is what he's saying. Let's see here. The fan base won't be reasonable when it comes to the Alonso negotiations. I tweeted something out. Yeah, I tweeted something out about this Spotrac projection on my X account earlier today, and the overwhelming majority of people, without a doubt, said if that's what it takes, yes, give it to Pete Alonso. So that tells you something about where this fan base is at with that. A little bit of outside news. Seattle gave up on Robbie Ray fast. Yeah, they did. He's heading to the Giants. Let's see here. I've seen this on other Mets channels. All these fans bashing the guy because he's not getting the big names that they want. Damn, okay, he's talking about David Stearns. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Daniel. I mean, we're not going to bash David Stearns here. We're objective. We know this is not what we wanted this offseason, but we know that it's probably plausible and realistic in terms of where the Mets are out their cap space, which is why we put up that slide early in the stream. So appreciate you checking us out here. Carlos agreeing with me here. Appreciate you, Carlos, always. And let's see here. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. See, now we're on the same page. Like I said, if you guys are here, we appreciate you spending your Friday early afternoon. We know there's a lot of other Mets podcasts that are going to be going live. Shane Sons is going live later tonight. Make sure you go check them out. Make sure you subscribe to both of our YouTube channels in the description. Hit that thumbs up on both streams. We thoroughly appreciate it. Tuesdays and Fridays, but for the offseason, we've just been doing Fridays. When the season rolls around, we'll implement more Tuesday streams. Keep rocking with us. We definitely appreciate it. And thank you all to those commenting. It makes this stream that more enjoyable. So there's Pete Alonso talk. We'll see what happens there. We'll keep monitoring. Will it shock me if there's no deal done as we head into the final days of the offseason? It's not going to shock me, right? It won't shock me if this becomes a Judge 2.0 situation with the New York Mets. But there is a risk that you run in terms of letting that happen, like you said, Nelson. And at the end of the day, Steve Cohen has the power, and he will have even more power to do that and pony up to whatever Pete Alonso wants in the 2025 offseason. So we're just saying we need to keep our expectations, and we need to talk about this more in a more objective light. Like, just because a player is homegrown and he's objectively probably my favorite player on the Mets, but I'm not going to sit here entertain if he's asking for 35. I'm not going to give him 35. If he wants 32 right away, I'm not going to just not negotiate with him. There needs to be some sort of expectations on both sides. Absolutely. So with that being said, let's go into our last topic of the day here, running on about 50 minutes of the podcast. Let's talk about I'm not sure why that says Harrison Bader at the top, so please do ignore that. But we're going to talk about the projected 2024 pitching outlook as of today on January 5th, and we'll talk about the 2025 offseason outlook with the guys that you see in red on the right-hand side of your screen set to hit free agency, right? And we talked about this on the Mets Hot Stove. Imanaga, there's conflicting reports on whether the Mets are going to be entertaining an Imanaga this offseason. Bowden saying that the favorites are Giants and whatever other teams, Red Sox maybe, that are in on him. And then SNY, I forgot who put it out. It might have been Martino. I'm not exactly sure who wrote that article saying the Mets are still in talks with Imanaga. So we don't know what's going on there. But my whole point is when you see the names on the bottom here in terms of potential Mets signings still in the market, even trade talks, we see that the Mets have engaged in talks and are in on the Dylan Cease sweepstakes, which praise the heavens, because I've been asking for that for quite some time. I've been telling David Stearns, hit the phones, let's get Dylan Cease to Queens. We're going to have a problem. Like, this has to be addressed. Like, this has to be partially addressed this offseason, because when you have 3 free agents hitting the market next offseason, you have to fill the pitching spots at some point. And if you sign a guy like Sean Manaea to a 2-year deal, you alleviate some pressure with those guys coming off the board next offseason. So where are you at with the projected 2024 outlook? Obviously, I think we both know and truly believe that we're not done here, because if we're rolling into the season with Quintana as our 2 and Severino as our 3, it's not going to be a pretty season. Where are you at, Nelson? Especially with the rumors that we heard today with the whole Imanaga stuff and the whole Dylan Cease stuff.
Yeah. Well, first off, I don't think there's a world where Joey Lucchesi is going to be our 4th starter. I think at best he's a guy that they maybe use in the pen as a swingman type thing. I don't think he's going to be in the rotation. I definitely don't see him in next. Like, that 25 outlook is basically Senga, because I have no faith in McGill. I don't think he's going to be anything for us. I really don't. I could be wrong. I could be off base. Maybe they threw him in the pitching lab and he's figured something out. I have no faith in him. I'm not a McGill guy. I'm really not. So for this, let's look at this year. I mean, we need another guy. We have to get it. And if you ask me, really, if we're looking at the free agent and this is what we're playing with, like, you truly need probably one of these guys, and you need to find, whether it be Cease or another guy in a trade, you need somebody in that top of the rotation, because none of those guys are top of the rotation guys. Imanaga at best is a 3. He's not. It's to roll into the season with Quintana as your 2 it's tough. But I understand why the Mets again are hesitant to go crazy and sign names that you haven't put on here, obviously, because for the most part it seems we're not in on them. Snell, Montgomery. Like, yes, that 25 outlook, if you look at it based on these names, isn't great. But we have, I've said it and I'll keep saying it, we have pitchers waiting in the wings. And 25 is the year where I really think we're going to start to see a lot of those guys. You have Christian Scott. You have Mike Vassell. You have Tyler Stewart. People sleep on Dominic Hamill. I think the guy has potential. You have Tidwell. That's 5 guys right there. Obviously, not all of them are going to pan out. It's not realistic. But if you can get a couple of those guys in your rotation, then that helps you immensely, because then you're only looking to fill 1 or 2 spots instead of potentially 4 spots. So, and then you have, I mean, if you really, I mean, I could go on. We also have guys that can help us, because we get a lot of complaints about what we've been doing with the bullpen too. We have some guys in the minors that can be relievers for this team, if not starting this year, also 2025. There's Nate Lavender, Paul Gervais, Troy McLaughlin. These are all guys that pitch very well in the minors. I have an eye on all of them. I think Nelson acts like he's watched these guys pitch in the minors. I actually do watch these guys. But there is what do you call it? The minors has its own version of MLB TV. I watch these games. I don't know why he acts like I don't, because I do. There's a reason I talk about these guys. It's not like I'm making this stuff up out of left field. I'm not saying all of them are gonna pan out. To me, Christian Scott's my guy. I really think if any of them pan out, he's the guy. I really like Tyler Stewart. Vassell, I'm not sold on. Hamill, like I said, I think guys are sleeping on him. Tidwell's a decent guy. The guy that was hurt last year that at some point could make some noise is Calvin Ziegler. And then we have guys way down in the minors who are, I mean, it's dreams on, but there's Felipe de la Cruz, Leonel Avales, Joel Diaz, Jerome Ramirez. These are guys way down, single A. They're years away, but the point is that people act like the Mets have no pitching talent. They do. It's just, it's not all ready to help us right now, this minute. But, and like I said, it's not, you can't bank on them guys, right? So it's you're obviously taking a chance. But on the same token, who thought Jacob deGrom was an infielder? He wasn't a highly touted prospect. He became an ace. He became a stud. Matt Harvey was a pretty highly regarded guy, but still, he helped us. The reason we made the World Series in 2015 was because we had Matt Harvey, Jacob deGrom, Noah Syndergaard. We had young arms that performed well. Granted, they all freaking ended up blowing up in our faces. Sadly, we couldn't sustain it. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that these prospects can come up and help you. So like I said, it's just, you have to be willing to invest in that talent, help that talent grow. That's why we brought in these front office guys, different guys to help with the development, because we've been very bad at this. We've been very bad at developing talent. So we hope that changes, right? Again, don't hold me to it. Obviously anything can happen. These guys can all end up being duds. But we can't just assume that that's going to be the case. And no, Mets fans are not going to be patient. And I totally understand that. And I'm not saying we're going to roll with a rotation of all of these guys. I'm saying that part of their outlook, part of David Stearns looking to 2025, he has to keep in mind that he has these guys in the minors. So he has to make a decision. Either we trade them because I don't think they're going to help, or I believe in them and I'm willing to take a chance that 1 or 2 of them can actually be in my rotation in 2025. So That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people do forget about that, but also just like in terms of this projected 2024 outlook, like we know that's not good enough, right? We know that's not going to compete. But is it realistic to call up a guy like Christian Scott at the beginning of the year and expect him to be anything valuable for us in 2024? Absolutely not.
No,
Mike
not
Vasil, to Tom's point here, Mike Vasil's not done. I guess people are just a little bit more like low on him. I guess he finished out 2023 with a little bit of just a slower ending, right? So I think that he probably has a good chance to crack this rotation if he does well in spring training because he's the most ready of the bunch. But there's a lot of people under Mike Vasil, a lot of pitchers under Mike Vasil that a lot of people aren't sort of talking about. Like you said, the Christian Scotts of the world, the Blade Tidwells, probably those two predominantly are going to be the most ready of anybody else to come
Let's
up
face it,
and
though,
make an immediate impact in 2025.
most of these guys are guys that are going to be 20. We're looking at some of them might help at some point in 2024, but they're more than likely 2025 guys. So I'm looking at it and from that aspect. So you're not trying to fill your rotation with signing a Snell and a Montgomery and this and that, and then blocking all of those kids. That's what I'm looking at it as.
And so my also point to back that up and sort of kind of make a side point to it is that if you, like you said yourself, right, when we were talking about this, you only see Senga idealistically in the 25 outlook on the screen. So if you go and trade for a guy, maybe a 2 this season, this offseason, let's say it's a Dylan Cease, and if you go sign a back-end guy like Sean Manaea on a 2-year deal just to have him and say that you can automatically put him into that 2025 outlook, that leaves that 1 or 2 spots for those guys coming up to prove themselves. It's a mixture of both. So, like, that's why I truly don't understand. Like, if we're out on a Shota Imanaga, like, why? Because you still need to at least sign one other pitcher for me to sort of alleviate that pressure in 25 and also to set up those prospects for success coming in and filling that rotation. It has to be a mixture of both. So when people are saying that we're out on Imanaga, like I get it, maybe the long-term aspect of it, but why not pivot to a guy like Sean Manaea? Lefty, 2-year deal, exactly what we need to make sure that we have the back end of the rotation filled out because nobody wants to see Tyler McGill in 2025 pitch in any aspect in the starting rotation. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody.
Yeah, no, totally. I think Manaea probably makes some more sense. In Managa, I think the reason they might be out on him is because they don't really see him being that guy. Like I truly think that might be the case. Or maybe not. Maybe they are. We're just basing this on reports, and these reports have been wrong all offseason. So who the hell knows? Maybe we do sign the guy. But it's a possibility that they just see it as, you know what? He's an okay pitcher, but we don't think he's worth 5 years, 100 and something million. And if that's the case, that's fine. But then you do, like to your point, need a Manaea, and then you got to trade for somebody, whether it be Cease or Burns or who the hell knows. But yeah, we need to have you nailed it in that we need to have a mix of we got to have at least 2 more of those spots for 2025 filled. So then you can potentially use some of these kids or trade or whatever you have to do. But you can't go in the next year with just Senga. Like that's unrealistic.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last point here in terms of the pitching category for the Mets in 2024 and the rumor about Dylan Cease. And I saw someone say, well, we don't have enough pitching prospects to give up for Dylan Cease. And my thing is like why would the White Sox, in terms of tearing it all down, also forget about why would they write off position prospects? Like they're tearing it all down. They need everything. So they're not going to just limit it to position or pitching prospects. And they also have other pieces to give up. It's not Dylan Cease. They can give up an Eloy Jimenez. They can give up a Luis Robert. Like they have other pieces that they can get back. So if the Mets come at them with an undeniable offer for Dylan Cease, and it's only position players, like they're not going to I can't see a world that they turn that down. So I just don't understand that sort of thing. I think it was a little bit more apparent with the pitching prospects for the Juan Soto deal, but I'm not sure it's so equivalent with the White Sox and with the way that their organization is shaping up for the long term.
I think realistically they would probably want one pitcher, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the centerpiece. Like I don't think you giving them Christian Scott in a Dylan Cease trade.
Sure.
But the problem is the asking price does seem to be high. Like I read somewhere that they wanted 3 top 100 prospects. I mean, we have 5. Do you want to give them 3? Maybe you can talk them down to 2.
Sure.
And then who are the guys you're giving up? Because the rumor had it the Braves were in on them and they offered like their top guy. Granted, the Braves farm system kind of sucks. If we're being honest, they had one guy that was ranked 50th, I think, and their other guys like ranked 100. So they offered like their top guy and Vaughn Grissom, and I think somebody else. They ended up trading Grissom to the Red Sox for sale. So if that wasn't enough, then what do the Mets have to offer? Like, do they take Acuna? I mean, I think ideally, I think most Mets fans, that's the one guy they probably would rather. I think if I'm reading the tea leaves, would rather give up Acuna over some of these other guys. I know I would. I like Acuna. Don't get me wrong, and in some lists, he's not considered our number 1 prospect. But to me, I like Jet Williams better. I like Drew Gilbert better. Those are not guys I really want to trade, but like if that's what they're asking for, like, are you willing to go that route? Like maybe not both of them, obviously, but are you willing to give up one of those dudes and maybe who knows, a Parada and somebody else to get this guy? Like that.
Do you think
You got to really ask, I guess.
Do you think the Mets at this point could sell a team like the White Sox, like the Braves did with Grissom, on a resurgence for Brett Beatty or Mark Vientos?
Vientos, no. I
Okay.
don't think Vientos was ever that highly regarded to begin with. Beatty, on the other hand, was. Beatty was one of our top prospects.
Yep.
So could you sell a team on Brett Beatty could be your future at third base? Maybe. The problem there is then what do we do at third base? Because we don't.
Yeah.
Then are you gonna play third? Is Joey Wendell gonna be your third baseman? I mean, that's the trouble with doing that. So
you go sign Matt Chapman. Go sign Matt Chapman and give up.
Yeah, but then you're giving up the qualifying offer. He had the qualifying offer, so then you're giving up picks and international money. I don't know if they weren't willing to freaking shell out money for Snell, which is more of a need, and you could argue at pitching that we need. I don't think they're going to do that for a Matt Chapman.
Yeah, I'm curious what a Matt Chapman's going to make anyways. But the thing is like, yeah, you're right. If you do sell a team on Brett Beatty, what do you do at third base? That there had to be a lateral move there, and David Stearns would have to be thinking ahead. So
that's a solid point, but the White Sox don't have to trade this dude. Let's remember that too. He signed for 2 more years. So are they necessarily desperate to give up to get money off the books just to get him out of there and take a lesser package? Like, to me, I feel like if I were them, I don't know, maybe not, but if I were them, I would hold on out for more prospects because and Robert Murray, I was watching, he had a YouTube live yesterday, and he made a point. He's like, he doesn't think they are trading these guys. He doesn't think Cease is going anywhere. He doesn't think Robert is going anywhere. He thinks if anything, it's more likely at the trade deadline. So I don't know. He's obviously more in tune than guys like us. But then the report came out that the Mets made a call or whatever. So who knows? I really don't know. The one thing that I would love to have him, obviously, he feels a huge need, but the one thing that screams at me that they won't do it is just the fact that the price might be a little high.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and even with Cease too, like you get control there too for a guy like Dylan Cease, who didn't have the best 2023, had a lot better of a 2022. The stuff is there to be an ace, really, but definitely number 2 behind Kodai Senga. So it's not a clear cut, oh, let's go get this guy. Listen, I got to go off topic here. Are you surprised the Braves made that move for Sale and then proceeded to give him an extension? Because they've had a really unusual offseason. It seems like they are also preparing to just give it to the Dodgers and be like, listen, we're not backing down.
The offseason for the Braves has been very odd. I don't know that I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's just been random. Like they haven't added anybody that I really go, ooh, that guy scares me necessarily. But the team itself is scary just because they still have like a ton of young talent. They still have pretty solid pitching. Sale's an interesting one because Sale has proven he can be very, very good, but he's also hasn't been healthy and he hasn't been as good when he has been. So they're taking a chance there. Do they maybe see the potential that one of their free agent arms, they got a couple arms coming up in free agency, that one of those guys is going to walk, and maybe that they're trying to hedge on that? I don't know. Like I said, their farm system at this point isn't very good, so it's not like they have a guys ready to step up and fill in. So they're kind of planning for the future as well. So yeah, I don't know. It's the Braves, so I hate to sound like this, but I always feel like that team, they have some sort of dark sorcery magic working in their favor, and everything works out for them as opposed to for us.
They find a
So
way, man. They definitely
like
find a way.
Easy just said it. Watch Sale be like a Cy Young for them. Like
Pitches
you
30 games.
can see it. I could see it happening. I wouldn't bank on it, but I could definitely see a world where for some reason, all of a sudden, Chris Sale has become himself again. So I don't know. And then let's not forget, like most Met fans are still going to be on, what you call it? What's his name? The outfielder. Why am I blanking on his name? The outfielder that they traded for, the guy from the Diaz deal.
The guy from the Diaz deal.
Yeah, we gave up to Seattle, and Seattle traded him to the
Oh,
Braves.
Kalenic.
Yeah, don't forget that they
Yeah.
got Kalenic, and we're gonna hear nonstop every time Kalenic comes to bat for the Braves. It's gonna be what Kalenic did. So, it's just.
Listen, we hate the Braves. Screw the Braves. We know the Mets aren't having the best offseason compared to them, but screw the Braves. It'll always be screw the Braves on this podcast. So that's all I have on the pitching. I'll get into some of the comments here before we get out of here. Ethan's checking in with us here. He says, don't forget about Sproat, fireballer out of Florida. Just drafted him as well.
I forgot to mention. Yep.
Absolutely. Carlos is saying, great point to you, Nelson. We're just not used to developing great pitchers. I appreciate you saying this about the farm, and let's not forget about them. So, absolutely. Listen, would I love these two guys, Ted? Absolutely. I just don't see it happening, man. Like, Lane Thomas, I think, is a little bit more feasible, maybe. Actually, I'm not even going to say Tanner Scott. But yeah, no. I mean, absolutely. I don't know. I would love to see them, but I just don't think those guys are going to be here. They're not going to make their way over here. Let's see here. Going through the comments here. There's some great comments, some great discourse here. I appreciate Daniel, Carlos, Aaron. What do you think about this name for the pitching? Jose Barrios.
Our guy Keith from Shea and Sons has been banging.
Yeah, he's been saying that
for a little while.
Yep.
I thought before Mauricio got hurt, some sort of McNeil Barrios deal made sense. But with Mauricio getting hurt, and at this point, I don't think McNeil is expendable. I don't think we go that route. Could we trade prospects for him? I don't know. I don't know that the Blue Jays are even wanting to give him up, but I like Barrios. I do. He's not He's not some lights out guy, but I think he would fill in that third spot very well. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind it, but I just don't. I haven't seen any smoke there. It's just been like people just bringing it up, but
And Barrios has regressed, but I mean, at this point, if we need a filler to have a filler, like we said with Sean Manaea, like an equivalency type there to alleviate pressure for 2025, I mean, maybe take a stab at it. You know what I mean? We appreciate you, Daniel. Thank you so much. His first show here on the Interstate Mets Report, and he's going to be back. We definitely appreciate that. Thank you for subscribing, and we try to do our best up here, man. Absolutely. Got a couple more comments here. Listen, this is interesting, Carlos. I've been clamoring for this for quite some time. This is a tricky situation here, but if the cards align, I would not be opposed to this at all. But there's a lot that has to be involved here in terms of getting those medicals right. So,
that injury is just scary, man. That's not one that most pitchers come back from. But I mean, if you can get him for cheap and it's a guy you could take a flyer on for and then have him waiting in the wings for next year, like it's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Let's see here. I think Ted likes the Mariners guys that I was talking about on the Hot Stove Live the other night. And Bryce Miller and Brandon Wu. Those are the 4 and 5 for the Seattle Mariners, and we've been kind of speculating. Everyone wants to talk about Castillo, and I'm just like, the Mariners aren't giving up Castillo. I don't care how much money problems they have, and they have a plethora of rotation of guys that are capable. And Miller and Brandon Wu, to your credit, Ted, happen to be 2 of them. So keep an eye out. Listen,
I just wonder if with the Robbie Ray trade, they're not looking to get rid of any. I don't think you want to get rid of like all your pitching. Like I don't know. I don't know how bad the money situation really is. Those aren't guys that are making a lot of money anyway, so I don't see how that would be that would help them necessarily unless they just get a killer package back. Castillo, like the only reason to trade him is if they really are sunk and they need to get money off the books bad. I don't think it's going to happen, but stranger things have happened.
So either. Yeah, absolutely. This is a good question. Where's Ronnie going to play when he comes back? That is a very good question. I mean, it all depending on trades and what the Mets do in the trade market. Obviously, we both speculated about Ronnie playing up the middle with Lindor, where he looked great at for a couple games there in 2023. I like him at second base, even given the stature. I know he has a better arm than Brett Beatty. Although we have to see what Brett Beatty has to show for in 2024 as well. That's directly affected into that. And then you throw Luis Angel Acuna in the mix coming up. I know that he can play a little bit of outfield, but he's a little bit more unproven there in that category. So this is the grand old question when he comes back. Where are we slotting him in at?
Yeah, I mean, we have so many guys that can play the middle infield coming up. Whether they all pan out, who gets traded, like that's all going to come into play because Acuna is a natural second baseman, shortstop. Jet Williams is a natural second baseman, shortstop. You've got the younger guys in Vargas and the Jeremy Rodriguez's and all these. There's a ton of prospects that are middle infielders. So at some point, we have to either move guys off positions, move Mauricio somewhere. To me, though, he looked best at second base. I truly believe that. And then what happens with Brett Beatty? Does Brett Beatty go out there this year and show us, hey, I can handle the bat and my glove improves? Because if that's the case, then he's your third baseman and you're not moving him off of that spot regardless. So we have to wait. 2024 is going to be a year where we have to see what happens with some of these guys. If Beatty can be the player we thought he could be, then that changes things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're trying to improve the farm, Daniel says, but would they trade a top prospect to get a need or just wait? I think at this point in this offseason, they're just going to wait. Now, a controllable guy like Dylan Cease, that maybe changes the ball game, but it changes a lot of things. Yeah, it changes a lot of things.
I think if it's a controllable guy, they'd be more willing to move a prospect. If it's a rental, I don't think it's going to happen.
I know Uncle Ted, first of all, Ted, I know you hate Sean Manaea, but I'm sorry. I'm going to have to disagree with you. I take him on this rotation in 2024. I know Uncle Ted wants nothing to do with Sean Manaea. I hear you loud and clear. But listen, I would sign Sean Manaea over a guy like Hyunjin Ryu. And honestly, I'd even take him over Mike Clevenger as well, to be honest with you. I think his stuff plays, and this team needs another lefty. So Sean Manaea probably would be a smart investment for a short term. Last question here. This has to do, and this is from Ted again. I'm not sure this is the case, but J-Ram a potential for, I think, would be next offseason if he becomes available for third base and Brett Baty doesn't prove himself.
I really don't think. I don't see why the Guardians are trading him.
Yeah.
They have him locked in. They signed him to an extension, didn't they? He's locked up for long term, if I'm not mistaken. So
he has. Yeah, the only reason is because they're cheap and they try to get the money off the books as well. But like, I still don't see it. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? That ownership is weird. They're kind of like the Pittsburgh Pirates on steroids. Like the Guardians actually win sometimes. But those are two organizations that are very strange. They make moves that don't make sense. And yeah, so who knows? But I would love J-Ram. He's Lindor's boy, so that would be a nice little fit there. I just don't see it happening, especially not this offseason. Maybe next year, maybe that's a possibility, but I just don't. I think the Mets are, as much as Uncle Ted might hate it, Brett Baty's our third baseman, like it or not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For 2024, I've been saying that. Don't expect anything else out of third base instead, except Brett Baty. For 2024, you got Alex Bregman in 2025 as well. I know J-Ram is probably light years ahead of Alex Bregman in terms of my mind, but those two guys remains to be seen. I mean, Bregman for sure, because he's going into free agency. So if he gets an extension, that's one thing. But if he doesn't, then yeah, Daniel. Fridays we go primarily this off season. Tuesdays have been, with the lack of news, we don't really do it on Tuesdays until the season starts. So we usually try to float between 3:30 and 4 o'clock start time. We try to go right in between there. If you don't follow us on all of our social media accounts, we basically tweet out whenever we're going live. So make sure you follow us there. Amish Country Met at Amish Country Met on X. You can see updates there. You can see updates on my X account at CPNY Sports. And if you want to just not follow everybody and anybody, then you can just follow us on Interstate Mets. We will tweet it out on the Interstate Mets account as well. So I definitely appreciate you tuning in.
Sometimes throw a little Friday night stream in there too, so don't.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. We sometimes we do Friday night streams in case we're a little bit busy. So like I said, just stay tuned to our X accounts and we'll definitely let you know when we're going live if there's a schedule change. So that's all we had for you all today. We don't have anything else. We talked about Bader. We talked about the Mets money situation moving forward. We talked about Pete Alonso extension. We haven't talked about Pete Alonso in a while, so we figured it'd be a nice little shakeup. Talk about Pete Alonso, give our perspectives on that, and we talked about starting pitching, which is an obvious need for the New York Mets moving forward, no matter if they go the trade route or the free agent route. So, like I said, this has been your boy CP, joined by my guy Nelson, co-host Nelson. We'll see what happens moving forward. We got a little sliver of news yesterday with the Bader talks. I made a prediction saying that this is only the tip of the iceberg with the whole rumor surrounding the Cease trade market and the whole Martino talk of David Stearns being active in the trade market. So make sure you all are paying attention to our individual YouTube accounts. We'll be dropping more news. We'll be dropping our takes on news as it comes out. We might throw up an impromptu live here and there. If it's not on here, it'll be on the Mets Hot Stove with Talking Mets with Rob. So make sure you check us out on there. I thoroughly appreciate everyone's support. Nelson, do you have any last words before we sign off on this lovely Friday evening?
No, thanks everybody for watching. Appreciate it. If you're new, please subscribe to both channels. Wherever you're watching, jump over to the other when we're done here and give us a sub. That helps us out a lot. And like as well, that helps us as well. Always good to be here and talk a little Mets. Hopefully we get more and more news and then we'll have more to talk about. I feel like we're starting to now get a little more movement. It seems like we've gotten more trades, more signings. So still none of the big guys. I don't somehow Snell, Montgomery,
Teoscar, I feel like.
The bats are still out there. Like there's a lot of guys still out there for it being January. So we'll see what happens. It'll be fun once things start actually get moving. So thanks everybody for watching. Appreciate y'all. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Stay safe out there, and you too, Chris. Look, always good to talk, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Good to chat it up with Nelson again on an Interstate Mets Report. This is already episode 35 since we've been doing this, so it's always great to come back on here each week to talk some Mets and give some updates. Thank you to the chat. Shout out Daniel. Shout out Tom. Shout out M-Easy. Shout out Ted. Shout out Carlos. Shout out Henry. Shout out everybody that made it into the stream and dropped those comments. Shout out Aaron. Am I missing anybody? Who am I missing up here? Shout out Sanders. I'm going to keep scrolling up because I want to shout each and every one of you out individually because it makes my day to see you all in here. Shout out Ethan. Let's see here. Who else we got that I haven't shouted out before? Shout out Ian.
PR 1991 all the way
Shout out Mets 420. Shout out Patty.
We get X comments now, so that's cool. That's a new feature.
I know. Shout out Rube. Yeah, the X comments are awesome. Shout out Steven. Shout out Yuki. Shout out Hayden. And I think that's it. Shout out everybody. Thank you so much. Shout out Carlos Ortiz. Shout out everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Interstate Mets Report. We will see you all next week. Follow the X accounts to make sure you all know when we're live.
This guy. That's my guy.
Yeah. Shout out Biffer.
I just call him B. Shout out B.
Shout out B. Shout out B. All right, guys. This has been another episode. Appreciate y'all tuning in. It's your boy CP with my co-host Nelson. We are out, and let's go Mets.
Thank you for watching the Interstate Mets Report. Streaming Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to @Amish Country Mets Fan and